Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning Five here on Friday, February 6th, 2026. I am Dave Biddle, very happy, joined by Jonah Booker. Man, I thought we might be done with snowstorms here in Ohio. We knew we were going to get like an inch or two today. It's already more than that, and it's probably going to get up to maybe 4 to 5. So when I'm done here, I get to go out and shovel my driveway for like the millionth time. But how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, and sorry for you guys if I'm jumping in and out with my screen. I told Dave I am having a major allergy attack today, but for us, Dave, it's beautiful weather, 80 degrees. Hate to rub it in on you. Waste management week, and tonight I'm going to head up there and check out the Ludacris and Nelly concert in the Bird's Nest. So it should be a fun weekend.
Oh, there you go. That's like right in my wheelhouse. Old guy like me, like in rap. Oh yeah, a little Nelly, little Ludacris.
I think they got Ja Rule coming out there as well. So they got a little a pretty decent act tonight in the Bird's Nest.
Pretty good, especially the first two guys you mentioned.
Right.
Nothing against Ja Rule. Maybe something against Ja Rule. I don't know. He was on some good songs. I don't know if he was that good himself, but whatever. All right. Let's start with the offensive line. Jonah and I are going to bounce around a lot today on the show. We're going to talk Ohio State's offensive line. We're going to ask Jay Book about Ohio State's defensive backs, something he would know a little bit about, being a former college DB himself at Ohio University. And we're going to talk Super Bowl, of course. Buckeye-laden Super Bowl. Not that there's a ton of Buckeyes involved, but like they're prominent. Like the head coach of the Patriots being Vrabel, JSN. A lot of people think he might win MVP. Travion Henderson. Having a good rookie year for the Patriots. And then even Thayer Munford always was a good guy, and he's that sixth man what they bring in on jumbo packages for New England. So we're going to get to the Super Bowl. Let's start with the offensive line. So I did a story on what Ryan Day said on his radio show. He had a lot of things to say on his radio show. And he said, and a lot of people had, this is a little bit of a polarizing topic. He said, we feel we're 7 to 8 deep. And some people are like, well, shouldn't you be deeper than that? He meant 7 to 8 guys that he feel could be starters right now. Like, who are those guys? So like the big three, so to speak, with Austin Sareveld, Luke Montgomery, and Carson Hinsman. And then also guys that got, like, Gabe Van Sickle started 2 games this past year. Josh Padilla is a guy they feel really good about. He's now a fourth-year junior, can play center and guard. Ian Moore really came on. That's 7 right there. I think Ian Moore is going to be a starter at one of those tackle spots. They're going to move some guys around, either bump Phillip Daniels inside, maybe bump Sareveld inside, or maybe bump Daniels to the bench if that happens. But I think Ian Moore is going to start. Then you have Jake Cook. That was the 8th guy he was talking about. They really like Jake Cook. But they also have Carter Lowe. They have Sam Greer. They have the young man they're bringing in from Dartmouth that we'll get here in June as a depth piece. They've got other guys that they're bringing in. They got one of the Armstrong twins still around. So how do you feel about the depth on the offensive line and the starters, and just what Coach Day had to say about that, Jay Book?
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting choice not to go with a transfer portal, because a lot of the fans looked at the way that the offensive line performed the last two games, and a lot of people thought that's not good enough. This isn't good enough to be able to block elite defensive pass rushers. But they seem to be very bullish about it. They're going to be an old offensive line, an experienced offensive line. And I also thought it was fascinating that he said it cost a lot to bring all of those guys back. And it got the wheels turning into my head, like, were some of these guys going to enter the portal? Because when you look at this offensive line, Dave, I don't see anybody being, a top 1 to 2 round pick to potentially jump to the NFL. So when he said it costs quite a bit to bring these guys back, that leads me to believe that some of these guys were probably fielding some really high offers to try to jump into the portal. So I think that if they can bring their level of play up to another standard next year, they should be pretty good. Now, the question is going to be Tyler Bowen, Dave, and you and I have talked about this. This has to be a really big year for him. He has to be able to perform at an elite level to get his guys clicking. There's no excuse. When you have this much veteran presence on the O-line, you better have those guys playing at a high clip.
Yeah, man, and I was also, I don't know how you could be pleased with the job Tyler Bowen did, maybe during the regular season, but they didn't really play many good defensive lines during the regular season, but they got their butts kicked. again, against the national champion, the team that finished runner-up, who both had great defensive lines. Still, Ohio State got their butt kicked, and 3 of those guys played a lot during the national champion. So it wasn't like those guys couldn't prove they couldn't play like at the highest level. So yeah, Tyler Bowen left a lot to be desired. Here's what gives me some hope. Hopefully he improves in year 2 here as offensive line coach. But furthermore, I think that's another reason I like Arthur Smith coming here. You and I talked about that last week. It's like he was an offensive lineman at North Carolina. He broke into the coaching profession as an offensive line coach, and like he's known for good running game concepts. So I think that's going to help having Arthur Smith as the offensive coordinator with his offensive line background. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I do too. Hopefully they work well together. I mean, we thought that with Ohio State having 3 offensive line coaches that they would be playing at a high clip because, I mean, how much more can you be coached up when you essentially were paying 3 offensive line coaches to get them to that level? Now, with Arthur Smith, his run game and his track record is definitely going to be able to help those guys. Now, the big question is going to be, how do they perform on the edge? Because you can coach a guy up as much as possible, but if you're just not physically able to stop elite pass rushers, that's an ability problem. You can't mask that up with coaching. So I'm curious to see how those guys are going to progress. Now, I do think the smart way to do that is to kick Phillip Daniels inside, put in more on the outside of tackle. And if you can do that, I think that's going to really shore up some of your issues when it comes to being able to stonewall some of those elite pass rushers.
Yeah, I mean, I feel good about it. I mean, like I keep saying, like just kind of you were alluding to, like I didn't think Austin Saraville would turn pro. He could have been like a 3rd round pick. I don't know where he would have been taken. His versatility surely would have helped. The fact that he was a captain as a 3rd-year sophomore at Ohio State would have, I think a lot of teams in the NFL would have. That's interesting. Iron Buckeye, knows he's a hard worker. So a team could have even fallen in love with him at the end of the 2nd round. But I didn't think he was going to go pro, especially with having 2 years of eligibility left. I think he'll probably go pro after this year. Carson Hinsman's one I had to keep an eye on. I thought he'd stay, but 5th-year senior, he's got tons of experience under his belt. Like centers are valuable. I thought there's a chance he could leave. Luke Montgomery, I didn't think he'd go, but like, you know, if you told me one of those guys left, it wouldn't have been the most shocking thing in the world. So it was nice to get those 3 guys back. So yeah, I kind of understand what they're talking about. I don't think, because going after a difference maker in the portal would have cost a lot of money. And I also think the Ethan Onianwa stuff was still on their mind. Like they don't want to go out and spend $1 million on a guy, and then he ends up being like the 9th man on the offensive line.
Yeah, I will say this: I'd much rather be in Ohio State's situation than not right now, which is you're returning an offensive line where the head coach feels that you're 7 or 8 deep, and you have a veteran, a very old offensive line that have played a lot of football together. I'd much rather be in that situation with the schedule that they have coming up, as opposed to breaking in a bunch of new guys who haven't played a lot, haven't communicated on this type of level together, and you're going against probably the hardest schedule in college football.
All right, let's move on to defensive backs, and we'll talk Super Bowl and whatever else the people want us to touch on. All right, DBs are losing 3 starters, but they knew they were going to lose 3 starters. What they were hoping was they weren't going to lose 4 starters, that being Jermaine Matthews Jr., and they got him to come back. Obviously, Devin Sanchez played a ton as a true freshman. He's going to be the other starting corner. Nothing against Lorenzo Styles Jr., great kid, solid player. I think Earl Little Jr. might be an improvement over Lorenzo as the starting nickel. Jalen McClain coming back, 2nd-year starter at safety, and obviously, you know, losing Caleb Downs is huge. But Terry Moore, he's no Caleb Downs, but that was a really good replacement. Like that was a really good get from Duke in the portal. So they got Miles Lockhart back. They got Jordan Woods at corner, who's 6'4". Ryan Day talked about both those young men, Miles Lockhart and Jordan Woods. They like the 2 true freshmen with Jay Timmons and Jordan Thomas. Your thoughts overall? They maybe could use a little bit better depth at safety, but we'll see. Your thoughts overall in the secondary, Jay Book?
Yeah, it's a secondary that we're going to have to wait and see, because I think the key to this, you need either one, Jermaine or Devin, to be elite on one side, because if they can be elite, that's going to erase a lot of problems that you have in the secondary, and it allow you to be very creative. Now, with the addition of Earl Little and Dominic Kelly, those type of guys, in Cam Calhoun, those guys are definitely going to be able to provide some depth here. I think Earl Little's also kind of that puzzle piece, Dave. How does he perform in the nickel spot? He's someone that is a big hitter. Will he be able to turn his hips and be able to run in this Matt Patricia defense? You do feel great about the fact that McLean's back, who played a ton of snaps. Sanchez played quite a bit, and Jermaine played really well. Now, you definitely need Jermaine to play much better than what we saw from him coming down the stretch here. But Dominic Kelly, a guy who played at Georgia, he's going to come in knowing the expectations. He's not going to be, the stage is not going to be too big for him. So you look at him, it's like, okay, if we can get him to play at a high level, that's going to be another chess piece here. But the freshmen are also going to be huge in here, because when you look at a 5-star guy in Jay Timmons, I think Jay Timmons is someone who will need to see the field right away, because I think Jay Timmons can slide into one of those positions that we lost from the guys that entered the portal, as far as the quarters with Scott and those guys. So I do think the secondary will take a slight step back. Anytime you lose a guy like Caleb Downs and Igbinosun, those guys are definitely hard to replace. The ceiling is extremely high. It's a very talented secondary. But I will say this, Coach Walt, he's definitely going to need to coach his butt off with these corners, because he has to. The thing about the cornerback position, Dave, it can linger on you. If you don't play well and you get beat a little bit, it can linger on you. And they always tell you you need to have a short memory. When it comes to Jermaine Matthews, you started to see it linger a little bit with him. And he has to find a way to be able to shake that off of him, to really build that confidence back up with him. And I'm fascinated, because I actually think Jermaine plays better when he's in the nickel. And I know they kind of got him penciled in as a starter on the outside right now, but I think his better position is inside. So that's going to be something to watch in the spring.
He did look good there last year. You're right. That's interesting. If somebody can like step up outside, like a Jay Timmons, even as a true freshman, that's asking
Yeah.
a lot, having a true freshman and then a true sophomore as you're starting outside corners. But those kids were two of the top corners in the country, in Sanchez and Timmons, and they like Jordan Thomas too. Before we move on to the Super Bowl, real quick about the two corners they brought in from the portal. The depth pieces, is that how you look at Cam Calhoun and Dominic Kelly? Calhoun has 2 years left. Kelly has 3. Getting Calhoun from Alabama, obviously Kelly from Georgia. Ryan Day talked about those guys as well. Do you look at those guys as depth pieces, or do you think they can, be productive corners this year?
I think they could be productive corners. But I look at it as you're definitely going to need one of those guys to for sure step up, because I still need to see Earl Little. What Ohio State asked out of their corners, they asked them to play a lot of man coverage in the slot there in the nickel position. So you need to be able to be an eraser. If you're going to have Earl Little being that, I need to still see it that he can turn his hips and do that. Earl Little also kind of reminds me of a box safety, a guy who's going to be physical at the point of attack. He's going to be able to knock somebody's block off. Can he be able to turn and run and cover at an elite level like you need in this Matt Patricia defense? I want to be able to see that. So I do think it's critical that you need at least one out of Cam Calhoun and Dominic Kelly to pop. But also Miles Lockhart, that's another ace in the hole. Like, where's his development at? I give him credit that he's sticking around. He's someone that could have easily jumped into the portal and said, hey, I'm going back to Arizona to play at ASU or U of A. But he's sticking around. And if they can get something out of him, that's going to be a cherry on the top. And then you mentioned some of the other guys like Blaine Bradford. I think he's going to be in the 2 deep. And then Leroy Roker also got quite a bit of playing time down the stretch. And he's someone that they really like. Leroy Roker is one of those fascinating guys. And I heard Petoni tell the story about Roker. and they said that he really didn't show up on their radar until they saw that Iowa offered him, because Iowa is so good at finding those hidden gems, those 3-star guys, defensive backs, and turning those guys into high-level NFL caliber type of players. And when they saw that Iowa offered Leroy Roker, it made them go back and look at his tape again to reevaluate what they were looking at when it comes to him coming out of high school. And lo and behold, he was a low-ranked 3-star guy, and he's starting to see a lot of playing time.
That's a great story there. I didn't know that. Maybe if I was on the beat, I would have known that. Oh, I am on the beat, and I didn't know that. That's good stuff, though. I mean, like, and you wouldn't want to do that a lot. Like, how'd you guys land him? Oh, we just paid attention to what Iowa was doing, and we just tailed Iowa. But in that respect, it makes a lot of sense. Going down to Florida, getting Leroy Roker, and yeah, he will be on the 2 deep. Like you said, I think Blaine Bradford will be as well. All right. They also have Deshaun Stewart's another redshirt freshman. Deshaun Stewart's another guy that could get in there. All right, let's get to the Super Bowl. We got Jason as one of many people that have mentioned this. He said, which Buckeye's going to win the Super Bowl? Henderson or JSN? Both are great. Either way, it's a win for the Bucks. Yeah, and then you have Mike Vrabel. I thought would be the first ever former Ohio State player to win a Super Bowl. But apparently there was a guy from for the Baltimore Colts, like in 1970. He was a former Buckeye player who was the head coach of the Baltimore Colts when they won the Super Bowl. So this would be the second. Seahawks are favored. Last I checked, by 4.5. JSN, Trey, Mumford, Vrabel, I love it. I have the Seahawks covering if I had to bet on that, but I'm going to stick with like player props, like Trey over like his combined rushing and receiving, and JSN over 93.5 receiving yards. Just your thoughts on this matchup. Where are you at betting wise, and where are you at Buckeye wise?
Yeah, I think Seattle's going to win because I don't think New England has enough offense. I think their offensive line has really struggled. It's a situation to where May has been sacked 5 times in the last 2 playoff games here. Their defense have been the one that has saved them. They've created a ton of turnovers. If Seattle plays a clean game, I do believe that this is going to be a situation to where Seattle can probably win this game by two scores. So I like Seattle to cover in this particular game. However, if New England won, I would not be sad at all, for the simple fact that you have a Buckeye head coach winning the Super Bowl with Travion Henderson over there. I'm scared to bet on anything when it comes to Trey props, because they seem to not want to give him any touches. He had 3 carries in the last game, and they gave Ramondre Stevenson like 23, 22 touches or something like that. Like the disparity between those 2 guys when it comes to who's Vrabel touching in critical moments is kind of crazy. And the wild thing is Trey Henderson is by far their most explosive player in this type of game where you're going to need points. You're going to need big plays, chunk plays. It would be foolish for them to not give Trey the ball. See, now I'm kind of talking myself off and not betting on Trey, because they're going to be almost forced to have to figure out a way to generate chunk plays here, Dave, to even stay in this game. And Trey Henderson is the one person on that roster who can take a screen pass 60 yards to the house.
Yeah, I want to believe that the weather conditions, playing a backup quarterback instead of, I think Vrabel just was like, let's give it to Stevenson. Let's milk the clock. These guys won't be able to do anything on us, on our defense. They did get that early touchdown. And if Sean Payton doesn't kick that, if Sean Payton kicks the field goal instead of just trying to go for it with his backup quarterback, if that 10-0 Broncos lead, I think that would have held. But I think that might have played into it. Maybe I'm talking myself into it, that Vrabel was just like, all right, bad weather. They're playing a backup quarterback. They can't move the ball against us. Let's just pound the ball with Stevenson, try and get a lead, and then milk the clock, hopefully. Because Travion's, I'm going to do combined rushing and receiving. But if you just want to do rushing, again, though, it's because he hasn't been getting many touches, as you say. His over-under for like rushing yards is like 13.5. He gets 1 14-yard run, you hit the over. So, yeah, I like the Travion.
I didn't realize it was that low.
Go ahead.
I didn't realize Henderson's rushing prop was that low.
Because, even though he hasn't been getting the ball much, when he does, it's usually like in the passing game. But again, though, I think that the Patriots, they've scored. They're the first team to make the Super Bowl in a long time with scoring less than 20 points in each of their playoff games. So they've scored less than 20 points in all 3 of their playoff games, but they've played elite defenses. Although the Seahawks will be the best defense they face, at least statistically. Seahawks finished number 1. So I think they're going to have to mix things up a little bit. I think Vrabel knows going into this game as the underdog. Of course, they were favored against Denver because of the Stidham situation. They were favored by 3.5. Yeah, man. I mean, I'm bullish that that Vrabel's gonna mix in Henderson more than I know he's not the offensive coordinator. I think he's gonna tell Josh McDaniels, make sure you get Travion involved because everything you said, he's their one home run hitter.
Yeah. JSN, do we get a Rose Bowl JSN type of performance? Because he loves the big stage, man. I mean, he really showed up in the NFC Championship and destroyed the Rams. If we get a JSN type of Rose Bowl type of performance where it's like a 8, 9, 10 catch game, that right there, that's going to tell me that Seattle's going to run away with this. But I'm fascinated because JSN wins offensive MVP of the NFL. If he goes out on the stage, the biggest stage in the world when it comes to football, Dave, and he puts up one of those monster performances like we know he's capable of, I think it's going to take his stardom to the next level. Question: fantasy football wise, Jamar Chase or JSN next year? If they're both on the board.
We've been talking about this a lot. Oh, fantasy football, it's a little, even though Sam Darnold has turned it on, it's a little easier for me if you say fantasy football because I'll take Joe Burrow over Sam Darnold, and it's not even close. Jamar Chase, I mean, he won the Triple Crown last year. And then, I mean, you really couldn't go wrong with Jamar Chase and JSN. They're both extremely productive. They love football. They're extremely smart. They're durable. Well, I know what happened JSN's last year at Ohio State. I should but in the NFL, they're durable. I love both of them. You couldn't go wrong with Puka Nacua either, although his injuries would concern me a little bit. Not that he's like injury prone. He's just so tough. You could go either way. I'm going to go Jamar Chase because the Joe Burrow's the tiebreaker for me.
Yeah. And I was thinking about that because next year, that's going to be the big talking point. JSN, Puka, or Chase as wide receiver 1 in the NFL. And JSN's making a case. It's funny seeing the 49er fans on Twitter arguing with the Seattle fans, and the 49er fans are arguing in favor of Jamar Chase, and the Seattle fans are telling them like, go watch the Super Bowl down in Cancun because the 49er fans are so upset that their rivals are playing the Super Bowl in their stadium.
Oh, goodness gracious. Well, thanks for playing hurt. I appreciate it. I hope your allergy gets better, your allergy attack. It's all that good weather you have down there. It's affecting your allergy.
Here, man, once it starts turning here, the weather, I have like one allergy attack a year, and I'm just like, oh, man. I was like, my eyes are just gushing and stuff. I was like, but I'm not going to miss the show. I'll be here, but my eyes are a mess right now. So I still got to figure out if I need to take about 20 Zyrtecs before this concert tonight, but I'm not going to miss that one.
Yeah, if you're not going to miss the Bucknuts Morning 5, you definitely can't miss that concert. Jeez, I wish I was out there for that. That sounds like a lot of fun. All right, have fun at that concert. Enjoy your weekend and the Super Bowl. Good luck with everything, and I hope your allergy clears up, my friend.
All right, talk to you next week.
All right, thanks, J Book. At least we got to see J Book briefly. Hopefully we'll see him next week. Great stuff as always from J Book. Good win for the basketball Bucks yesterday. I mean, a win maybe a 1-point win wouldn't have been a good win, but like blowing out Maryland at Maryland, pretty good. I'm sure some of you are diehard Buckeye basketball fans. Some of you guys don't care at all. And then there's probably a lot of in between where, yeah, I want the Buckeye basketball team to do well, but I'm casual, or yeah, I would really like the Buckeye basketball team, not as much as football. And there's some people that like it just as much as football. I even know a couple of my friends who are Buckeye football fans that like basketball. Basketball is like their favorite thing. My guy Scotty Vegas that I do the show with at 97.1, he loves Ohio State basketball. It's like his number one favorite sport, period. Like Ohio State football is probably number 2, but like, so yeah, I'm the type, especially now I'm not on the basketball beat anymore. Like I follow the basketball team during football season, but I start to get really into it after football season. So like right now. And they were one of the first 4 teams out entering last night's game. I don't know. Maryland's pretty crappy, but still, you guys know on the road in the Big Ten. I mean, Penn State almost beat Michigan earlier this year at Penn State, and then Penn State went to Michigan yesterday and got smoked. Ohio State hosts Michigan on Sunday. I'll care about that for sure. Nice little Super Bowl appetizer for you. 1 o'clock at the Shot. So they need to either get the Michigan game, which will obviously be tough, or Virginia. They're playing Virginia here later this month in Nashville. Virginia's ranked. They got to get a tier 1 win and then just hold steady. Beat the team you're supposed to beat. Get one upset, hopefully 2. At least 1, and I think they're going to sneak in. As long as they don't have a bad loss. As long as you have a winning record in the Big Ten, which they do. They're 2 games over 500 in the Big Ten. You got to get 1 quality win down the stretch. Michigan, Virginia, they got a couple other chances as well. Get at least 1. We're just talking about just getting in the tournament. They can get 2 quality wins and hold serve against the teams they should beat. Finish with a 12-8 record in the 12-8 would be a little bit. How about 11-9 in the regular season? That's going to get you in probably. If you're a +2 in the Big Ten, you're probably going to get in at 11-9 if you have a quality win, which they really, 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 really need. They were that close against North Carolina, and they somehow blew that. So they got chances. Hopefully on Sunday they get it done against our friends from up north. All right, thanks to J-Book. Thanks to all of you. Live audience, very large here. I'm going to get the show up for our people who listen on our audio-only platforms. Thanks to all of them for listening to the show. Thanks to all of you in our live audience and our chat. Really appreciate it. And, of course, thanks to J-Book. I'm going to get the show up. Then I'm going to shovel more snow, which I am sick of doing. I know Doreen's in the chat. She said she's sick of snow. I like a few snow showers during winter, and this is the time of year when we've been getting pelted. We're over it, man. We're like counting down the time for spring, but not today, man. We're getting smoked here in Central Ohio. All right, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day and a great weekend. Go Bucks.